Welcome to the Statesman Talk. I'm your host, Anna Chaudhary, and our guest for today is a young politician from Kashmir. He is currently the spokesperson, General Secretary, Youth for J&K, and in charge of the Lal Chowk constituency for PDP. Mr. Mir joined the PDP when leaders were either leaving PDP or capitulating under political pressures. He holds master's degree in economics from University of Edinburgh and is also the chairman of ASM Foundation Trust that helps in poverty alleviation, engages youth and runs free mentorship programs for civil service aspirants. Mr. Mir, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mir, I'd like to ask you about your views on what actually changed with the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. A native's perspective, please.
Actually, you have to first put in perspective what exactly Article 370 and 35A was. Article 370 was nothing but the nature in which the center-state relationship were managed. That's one. And 35A was basically a power given to the legislature to decide as to who is the resident of the state. And therefore, because you're a resident, so you'll have certain employment opportunities, you'll have access to purchasing immovable properties. So this was Article 370 and 35A. And the manner in which it was abrogated was, of course, it was emotionally defeating for people of Jammu and Kashmir. But having said this, I think Article 370 was agreed upon after 1947 by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, because they said that the relationship that the union and the state will have will be determined, both of the leaders said this, will be determined by the Constituent Assembly. And Constituent Assembly eventually came up with Article 370, and that managed the center-state relationship. In this, Kashmiris never had a say as to whether we never really bargained for it. It was given to us. And over the period of time, if you see, consistently, it has been dissolved. It has been diluted. So, in 1947, we acceded to India under Instrument of Accession. And Instrument of Accession, we gave powers to the country for managing our foreign affairs, communications, ancillary items, and I think it was foreign affairs, and I think one more aspect was there. So these are the aspects that we actually acceded to, and nobody has a problem with accession. If you talk about the mainstream parties, nobody had a problem with accession. So, unfortunately, in the run up to abrogating Article 370, the first thing that the present government did was they demonized the mainstream parties in Jammu and Kashmir. Mainstream parties were treated as political organizations which were abetting secessionism, which was not the case. Actually, we accept accession, and we have been advocating for good strong center-state relationships, and that is precisely what we have been advocating from last 40-50 years, ever since 1947 accession happened.
So what do you think is
But it's very difficult now.
Why do you think is this happening? Why has this issue persisted for the past so many years, 40 plus years?
No, the issue is persisting from 1947.
So 1947, it's been a really long time. What do you think actually keeps this alive? Many governments have come and gone, and the issues stay the same.
Yeah, you're right. That's what I'm saying. So first, I want to cover this aspect. In the run-up to abrogating Article 370, they demonized the political organizations in Kashmir, and I said that they're abetting terrorism, and they're being soft towards terrorists. While as what the mainstream parties were actually doing is advocating democracy, advocating the Indian side, advocating federalism, and the shield that political organizations, mainstream political organization had, that we said that we have better concessions than the rest of the country. We have strong center-state relationships. And another aspect that was there was, in the run-up to abrogation of Article 370, was that they said that that Kashmir has been underdeveloped for a very long time. While as if you see the metrics, we are doing very well in all the metrics, be it literacy rate, be it life expectancy. In fact, now we've seen the total fertility rate of Jammu and Kashmir has also reduced. It's become 1.4. So all these factors say that Kashmir was an emancipated community. And this could not have happened if there were not reforms that have actually happened on ground. So this whole concept, this whole propaganda that mainstream parties are abetting secessionism and there is underdevelopment in Kashmir, that is something that was not right.
Okay. Now I have a follow-up question to this actually. Mr. Amit Shah, in his recent book, there's a book launch that happened a couple of days ago. So he actually mentions something to the tune of Kashmir basically having a lot of infrastructure development projects have actually taken place in the past few years after the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. So, and he attributes it precisely to this. Many highways have been built. The largest corridor, I believe, is also built in Kashmir. So many such projects have actually taken place courtesy the abrogation of Article 370. What do you think? What's your take on that?
My perspective to this is that Article 370 was never an encumbrance or an impediment
so you think for development, no direct relationship between the two?
Development projects in Kashmir. Absolutely not.
Then what was stopping
because
it?
we had big power projects like Baglihar happening. We have an industrial unit in Badi Brahmana in Jammu that has happened, and then you make electronic goods there, handicrafts, so many things, and plus we have a great hotel industry. We had. In fact, I just told you that we were very good on all the metrics of human development. So if you talk about development, Article 370 was never an impediment there.
Okay.
However, in order to legitimize their act, they are saying all these things. Just like the other states, wherever there is any aspect tension, and then they sort of give their own logic to doing something that the union wants.
So our Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, has recently tweeted or commented somewhere basically about the fact that Kashmir is the land of Maharishi Kashyap, one of the Saptarishis. And it's sort of there's a debate that sparked in the media, which is basically about the alleged possible renaming of Kashmir to maybe something to the tune of Kashyap.
Well, I'm not very surprised by this, because if you see the entire country, wherever you have any name that is predominantly Muslim, they want to either obliterate it or maybe change it. But it'll be very amusing to see that because Jammu has been named after a Raja called Jambu Lochan. So if they want to transform the name of Jammu and Kashmir to Jambu Lochan and Kashmir and Kashyap, that's going to be quite an interesting spectacle. Because, see, this is what I'm saying. This is an ideological war. Earlier also, if you see, that they have never advocated proper democracy. For them, it's like an ideological war where they want to take over a particular country and take over a particular state, their own state, which is an integral part of India, their own state, and then promulgate in the rest of the country for their own political consolidation. This is what they have been doing. And in fact, I must tell you one more thing, that Article 370 actually helped India more than it helped Kashmir, because Kashmir is the only state in the country which is predominantly Muslim. The majority of the people there are Muslim. So when Article 370 bestowed us the constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, we had it in our preamble that Kashmir will be secular. It was only late in 1978 that the word secular was inserted in the Indian constitution. So we had it before the Indian constitution. And if you want to actually see the demonstration of secularism in the country, if you actually want to demonstrate secularism, it's only from Kashmir where you can actually demonstrate it, because it's predominantly Muslim, and if you're able to protect the minorities of the country, of that state, and retain the beauty of that state despite being Muslim, that's a beautiful thing. That is why Article 370 would have helped India more than it would have help Kashmir, because it gives India an outlook of a secular country where they can actually implement and practice it.
So on that note, I'd actually like to ask you about, you spoke about the protection of minorities in the state. Mm-hmm. So do you think that there's a possibility of the return of Kashmiri Pandits who had to leave due to circumstances of faults of previous governments?
See, there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that Kashmiri Pandits have suffered during 87, 88, 89, when the tension arose in Kashmir. But however, now the problem is not, mainstream political parties, even I must tell you, I'm not a votary or advocate of separatism, but even them, they want Kashmiri Pandits to be back. All the mainstream political parties want Kashmiri Pandits to be back. But what we don't like, especially the mainstream party, is how the BJP utilizes this situation to sort of consolidate their vote bank in the rest of the country. It's actually better that you work towards bringing back Kashmiri Pandits, give them employment, amalgamate back into the Kashmiri society, than chest beating across the world saying that there have been atrocities on them. Of course, it's a blemish, it's a black dot on Kashmir's history that they had to leave. Ideally, all the Kashmiris want them, because Kashmiri Pandits are a repository of huge cultural aspect, knowledge that we miss in Kashmir. So we want them back, but it's just that it's not right that the BJP utilizes it to its advantage for consolidating the vote bank in the rest of the country, and they're winning elections over it, because if you must have seen...
It's the land of Kashmiri Pandits. If you look at, so the oldest, mystical traditions actually originated in Kashmir. It's been a hotbed of, not just civilization, but also of religious thoughts.
Yes, of course.
If you look at Sufism in terms of Islam, or if you look at Kashmiri Shaivism, which is a very important...
Not just Sufism and Kashmiri Shaivism. It must astonish you, because a lot of people don't know this, that the 4th Buddhist Council actually happened in Kashmir in 72 AD, I guess, yeah. So under the king Kanishka. So it is an amalgamation of Buddhism, Sufism, Shaivism, and it's like a beautiful mosaic of cultures, of religions. And it's very sad, rather, I would say, that the BJP has used this diversity, it's actually weaponized this diversity to break regions across Kashmir. Because this time, if you would see, that Jammu was been told that Kashmir does not have its best interest, and Kashmir voted to keep the BJP out. So not only are they weaponizing diversity, they are pitting regions also against each other, which is a sad thing, because firstly it's a frontier state, it's very sensitive, has a lot of cultural
importance,
ethos, importance, and to reduce that state to now factions of diversity, actually weaponizing diversity, that's not very good.
Okay. Do you think that the media portrays a correct and accurate image of Kashmir?
Well, of course not, because earlier, see, it's a very tough one actually, and this question is quite close to my heart, because if you see historically as well, Kashmir has always been seen from the prism of how beautiful the land is, how beautiful the rivers are, how beautiful the Lider is, how beautiful Jhelum is, the snow-capped mountains and the grasslands, the meadows. And it's been figured out in a lot of travelers' books as well, throughout history.
through history,
However, the only component that is missing in those travel logs and in these debates is the people of Kashmir. So not a lot of people, not a lot of media persons cover the miseries of people, the aspects that we are dealing with right now. I don't think a lot of media covers that.
Could you
So
tell
basically,
us? Could you tell us about that actually? So there are allegations of a lot of human right violations in Kashmir.
there is no human rights commission, so we don't have any. But it's there in every state, but we don't have it in Kashmir. So we don't really know whether human rights violations are actually taking place. So, but of course, there are excesses from every side. I wouldn't say it's just the security apparatus that is causing those excesses. It's the secessionists as well. So it has become very difficult to dissect the wrong from the right now. The place is so intertwined in right and wrong. However, I must say that as far as the security apparatus is concerned, and as far as things of human excesses is concerned, of course they're there, but they're not reported.
And
Actually, it's in the words of Victor Jacquemont, because the people are not taken into consideration when you talk about the beauty of Kashmir. He says that it's an ugly picture in a beautiful frame. That's what he says. Yeah.
could you tell us a little about the impact of heavy military presence for the people of Kashmir? How does it impact your daily life? And also continued, because we know that studies show that continued stress affects people in the long term.
Yes, of course. First of all, who really likes heavy military presence everywhere? I don't think a civilian would like it. I don't think if the streets of Delhi are filled with army men with heavy artillery and paramilitary forces consistently there and with heavy arms, I don't think people would like it. They would even feel safe. There is a psychological stress that there is something wrong. And imagine a society that has seen this from last 30, 35 years. Of course, there is a lot of stress. You will not believe this, that Kashmiris are actually dying due to suicide. Youngsters are dying due to suicide. And it's quite tragic, which also signals that not everything is right in the society, that there are a lot of claims that everything is fine after abrogation of Article 370. We have set everything right, but that's not true. That's absolutely not true. So if there is heavy military presence, then something ought to be wrong. And if the only where I feel I want to commend the army for the kind of jobs that they're doing, it's amazing. But a civilian would want army or the paramilitary forces at the borders, not in their day-to-day lives.
So do you think that the continued imposition of the AFSPA is justified in Kashmir?
Well, not at all. If somebody has fever, and if he will have continued corrosion, then perhaps after a point of time his liver will start damaging. So we have been advocating, our party has been advocating, in fact all the mainstream parties in Kashmir have been advocating that there is, except for in fact the BJP also, some factions of it, that there has to be a partial phase-wise removal of ASPA, because it is a draconian law and we don't advocate it. And now that there are tall claims that Kashmir is fine, Kashmir is absolutely okay, so I don't think that the defense or the Home Ministry should have any hesitation in removing ASPA phase-wise.
Okay. And also, what role does the military play in other security measures, for example, rehabilitation or relief efforts?
Well, of course, the relief efforts are lauded. If there is a flood situation, of course, they help. There are there are other relief efforts also that the military does, which is a good thing. They ensure that the road connectivity
During heavy snowfall and
during
other
heavy
natural-
snowfall and in regions which are
Difficult to access.
difficult to access, they're there. But it's just that as long as it's just relief, nobody would like military presence in the cities,
Of course.
all that much. So it just gives a mental impression that something is wrong, and there is a stress and fear psychosis.
And do you think that the local leaders are accurately representing the aspirations of Kashmiri youth?
First of all, for this, you have to answer what exactly Kashmiri aspiration is. So, if you talk about historical aspirations, well, they have been, I would say, over the course of time, they have been besmirched because Kashmiri is a quiet spectator as to whatever has been given to him in terms of the center-state relations. As I told you, he takes it and he doesn't have a choice. In the contextual, in the context and circumstance, whenever a situation has arisen circumstantially, contextually, you see that there was a new norm or a new bargain that was being done. It's not even a bargain, that a new diktat that was given to Kashmir, and he had to accept it. The Kashmiri had to accept it. For example, post 47, 53 happened, and after that 67 happened when the Prime Minister and the President Sardar Riyasat was transformed to Chief Minister and the Governor. Then 75 happens. Then 86 happens where Article 249 then is actually implemented in the state. We are just mere spectators in the changing union and state relationships. We're just mere spectators in it. And it culminated in 2019. So if you talk about this aspiration, where our center-state relationship has been muzzled over the course of time, of course not. We are not satisfied. Then I would say Kashmiri leadership has failed to protect that aspiration, because we wanted to honor the center-state relationship, and it's just that this union didn't. If you talk about now the development aspects, well, we were one of the developed states in the country, and now we are not. Our metrics are going down slowly. Earlier we had a problem of terrorism. Now we have a problem of terrorism plus crime, and crime only increases when your economic conditions goes down. So there has been, in my opinion, whatever I could gauge being in public life from last 3-4, there has been a concerted effort to make Kashmiri society economically weaker, because right now, if you see, economic pain is more severe than the political pain that has happened over the course of time. So unemployment is at the record high in youngsters.
Could you tell us about that? Because there's a lot of the emerging trends that actually talk about the fact that Kashmiri youth is choosing not to basically pursue higher education and in fact directly get into mainstream jobs.
Yeah.
Because they feel that they may not get employment despite their degrees.
It's not just that. There are very less employment opportunities because after abrogation, things receded. The industrial development that are claimed about, the tall claims of industrial, that doesn't exist on ground. It's on paper, but it doesn't exist on ground.
So you're saying no developmental work has happened?
Not so much.
But then how are these highways and everything else being built?
Well, they were being built earlier as well. Well, there are huge recruitment scams. There was last year and last to last year, we saw JKSSB scam, fire and emergency exam scam, JKSI scam, so many scams which recruit individuals into government posts. There were a lot of scams in that. Secondly, employability of Kashmiri youngsters is not been taken care of, because
Why do you
Even
think that
after
is?
pursuing a PhD, a person is not able to get a job.
But do you think that's an India problem, or do you think it's a Kashmir-centric issue
Of course, it's an
specifically?
India problem, and Kashmir is an extension to it, of course. But earlier that was not the case.
Okay.
Earlier that was not the case. A lot of educated youngsters got jobs. They were independent. Now they're quite skeptical about pursuing higher education because they think that it's better to work than to pursue higher education. That's actually retrogressive when you see in the context of civilization development. It is actually retrogressive that a person does not want to opt for education and opt for a
Because they
a
feel that
job
the
post
degree
class
will
12.
not add value to their lives.
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
Yeah,
Of
that's
course.
a disturbing trend for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So, what do you feel about the abrogation of Article 370 and specifically the manner in which it was abrogated?
Well, as I told you, abrogation of Article 370 was emotionally defeating for a lot of people, and it just was not right because the way in which it was abrogated, you had complete shutdown of communication for 6 months. The police was everywhere. You had curfew for 6-8 months. Our political leaders were, were put behind bars, and they were incarcerated for 6-8 months. And suddenly you hear that Article 370 has been abrogated. Well, any civilized nation would not, in fact, any democracy, civilized democracy, would not implement such a drastic
Measure.
measure
And
to
overnight,
abrogate
basically.
and to scuttle a law, and it was quite emotionally defeating. The reason why it was emotionally defeating is because despite having the Kashmiris thought to themselves, the leadership thought to itself that despite having geographical continuity and religious homogeneity with Pakistan, yet in 1947, Kashmir accedes to India based on its secular credentials, based on how beautiful the mosaic of cultures is. And for this in itself is a very drastic step. And for this, Kashmiris thought that they would be rewarded for this gesture. And
Pretty much the opposite is
and
what
and
played.
and how and of course pretty much the opposite, but at the same time the government policy has to run in perpetuity. You cannot say that in 1947, just because it suited you, it's one way, and in 2019 it doesn't suit you anymore, it's another way. Because 1947 maybe सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल और नेहरू जी ने ही आर्टिकल 370 हमें दिया था। और ये कैसी बात है कि उस टाइम पे जो होम मिनिस्टर थे सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल साहब, उनकी सोच, उनकी चेयर अलग है, और आज उसी चेयर से आपने आर्टिकल 370 हटा दिया, एंड दे आर एक्चुअली कंसिडरिंग इट अनहोली.
But don't you think the times of actually, whenever something starts, of course, laws are made and certain things are put in, in place, which are relevant to that particular time. And now time has evolved, like many decades have passed, and the scenario has changed. So don't you think it's appropriate in today's time? Is it not?
But the logic that was given to abrogate it was underdevelopment and Kashmiri mainstream leadership fostering secessionism, which is absolutely untrue. As I told you, there were roads that were still being constructed. There were the fact that the railway line is now, the railway is coming to Kashmir. It had started 20 years back. So it was never an encumbrance or impediment for development.
So you're saying it's in a way basically a whitewashing of the efforts that have actually been taking place for a longer time, but it's sort of culminated now, and the credit is being given to BJP is taking the credit. Is that what you're trying to say? Because the BJP is heavily mentioning the fact that basically Article 370 the abrogation of Article 370 is the main reason that a lot of development projects have actually gone through and a lot of employment for the youth has actually taken place. It's all courtesy this.
No, which is absolutely wrong.
Okay, so you
And at the
completely
same
disagree
time,
with that.
I completely disagree with it. The mainstream parties completely disagree. PDP completely
And you feel
disagrees
it was
with
a
it.
ploy.
But I personally want to understand, what has Article 370 got to do with the rest of the country? There is this whole, if you make, when a democracy, actually when a democracy, in a democracy assumes certain level of emotional and mental development. Here is a country which gives a lot of credence to federalism, but at the same time, this particular organization, BJP, it charges emotionally the entire country for certain aspects and postulates. One of the reasons was Article 370, based on which it charges the entire country.
Okay.
And I fail to understand what exactly does an ordinary man from Bihar or from UP or from Madhya Pradesh got to do with Article 370's abrogation. Because I spoke to in the run-up to the past elections in the UP, I was in UP and for some purpose, and I asked one of the guys who was actually a farmer, he was plowing his field. I asked him, how are you going to vote? He said, I'm going to vote for BJP this time. He was completely in rags. And I said, why do you want to vote for BJP? Because in COVID, a lot of people died, and you have deaths, the sugarcane prices that were agreed upon, you have not received that. MSP has decreased. Why are you going to?
Various other more pressing issues.
Why do you want to vote for BJP? He said, because they have abrogated Article 370. अब हम कश्मीर में ज़मीन खरीद सकते हैं. I fail to understand why. What has that ordinary farmer in UP got to do with Kashmir's zameen? Unless and until he's been ideologically changed, charged, emotionally charged, that we have to sort of, there is a country we have to invade, and that will give us some poetic justice to the previous, to the old, perhaps the atrocities that were being inflicted upon us. So it is actually, for them, it's a civilizational war, and they're seeking justice from Kashmiris.
Okay, and I'd like
And
to...
it's about, and honestly, it's about subnationalism. I think in our country...
How do you say subnationalism? Please explain.
I'll tell you. I think in our country, every state is subnationalistic in its own way. And a Bengali may be an Indian, but he's a proud Bengali as well. A Punjabi is an Indian, but he's a proud Punjabi as well. In the same manner, a Kashmiri is an Indian, but he's a proud Kashmiri as well. So
and they can coexist. That's
and they can coexist, and absolutely, these two can coexist. But they just want everything to be homogeneous.
And what are your views on the functionings of the current government? Do you think they're doing a horrible job? Do you think it's decent? Some things have been done right, and some things that, of course, need change.
Yes, the government has formulated in Kashmir, and National Conference has won. And we have a chief minister. But unfortunately, if you see it from the realm of federalism, from the prism of federalism, if you see it from that perspective, then I would want to believe that my chief minister has certain powers, can appoint his bureaucrats, can do legal appointments, will have control over the law and order situation, and then can control security apparatus. But all of this, the fact of the matter is now that we don't have statehood, so therefore there is no federal structure in play. I understand federal structure as it's established by the Constitution.
In fact, your Chief Minister, Mr. Omar Abdullah, also mentioned recently that BJP is silent over the statehood of Kashmir.
As I told you, the BJP has promised statehood, but it's not giving it to us yet. It's not delivering on it. And now there is a situation where there's a lot of confusion. There are two power centers in Kashmir. One is the LG, another is the chief minister. And they don't know, and people don't know where to get their grievances addressed from. in fact, it's very sad that recently what happened is a particular minister was along with the DC of that state. The DC said that the minister is accompanying the DC than the DC accompanying the minister. The DC took an offense to this when it was written in some media outlet that the DC accompanied the minister. So these are the kind of things that you have to deal with on a daily basis. So if things may seem to be in control, but actually they're not.
All right. And also, why do you think was the PDP defeated? What do you think were the main reasons for its defeat?
The reason was that people actually voted to keep the BJP out. PDP is predominantly a Kashmir-based party. So and Kashmiris voted to keep the BJP out. And in fact, it's quite a sad thing that Jammu people voted to get in the BJP and Kashmiris voted to keep the BJP out.
So
that is why there is a regional divide as well.
Yeah,
so
BJP
they kept the
versus
voters
non-BJP.
And also because even though our intention in 2014 when we formulated the government with the BJP was that there should be no regional divide. There should be some justice done to the concept of democracy. If Jammu had given mandate to the BJP and Kashmir has given mandate predominantly to PDP, both of them should come together and there should be a bridge formulated in terms of the government and there should be no regional divide. We should not let a particular area out of government. So that was the reason we formulated the government with the BJP. Our intention was to give a stable government. However, people, in my opinion, I think people were that time also quite emotionally defeated, as I said, that when we formulated the government with the BJP. And perhaps also, that was the reason they punished us.
What challenges does the absence of an elected government pose for the citizens of Kashmir?
Any elected government, no matter how flawed it is, it's always better than the best of the bureaucratic government.
Why would you say that?
Because democracy is like a swimming pool, and if you don't change the water every now and then, it'll turn into a cesspool. In the elected government, the people have the chance and actually reasons to kick the government out if next term, if they don't work for them. But what do we do with the bureaucrats? The files keep piling up. At the max, you can transfer a bureaucrat. You cannot actually take him out of the service. So, and one of the reasons that people voted in great numbers, other than keeping the BJP out and voting for Article 370, it was sort of a protest vote. People also voted because they just didn't want the bureaucratic rule anymore. They wanted their own representatives. Because the grievances were piling up so much.
So, how has the Delimitation Commission impacted political representation in Kashmir?
Delimitation, or you call it gerrymandering, I don't know if it's now right to say after the Supreme Court judgment because everything has been legitimized. But I give you a constructive criticism of it is that the seats in Jammu were increased by 6. It earlier had 37 seats and now it is 43. And on Kashmir, I think it had 43, now it has 45 seats. It had 44 seats, now it has 45 seats. So only one seat increased in Kashmir region. On the contrary, when you see the population of Kashmir division is 68 and the population of Jammu division is 53. So in that also they skewed the apparatus in such the whole chessboard in such a manner that Jammu would get an advantage.
All right.
So the metrics, I don't know if they were right, but of course it was again a ploy, an agenda where the Hindu dominant Jammu would get more pronounced in the state assembly. However, this is the problem. You are feeding a frenzy which might just divide the state in terms of you're pitting them against each other, which is not right. So this is what we criticize.
And also, how has the Union Territory status affected governance and autonomy in Jammu and Kashmir? How do you feel? What has been the impact?
Well, it has been considerably bad because everything literally is been decided by the central government or the or the or the LG, bureaucratic appointments, legal appointments, relation with the government. Everything has been decided by him,
So, you're saying all the
by the
main
center.
power posts have
And
been.
it is in the history of in the history of India rather, the first time that a particular state was downgraded to a union territory.
Okay.
So, of course, it's quite bad, and now there are two power centers. We don't know which one to follow. And the sad bit is that the sad bit is that after the government formulation, the present government's head, chief minister, has not been very assertive in terms of for the things that he promised in this manifesto in the run up to the elections.
Okay.
And he has not been very assertive, and that is the reason sometimes I feel as if Kashmiris didn't endure anything from last 4 years.
Also, I'm going to ask you, what would you say are the main issues of the Kashmiri youth currently?
Kashmiri youth is unemployed. Uh, he is under a lot of stress. There is drug menace, and more importantly, a huge population of Kashmiri youth is languishing in jails in the rest of the country. There are PSAs, UAPAs being slapped on 18, 19, 20-year-old guys, and they are languishing in Varanasi, Jhajjar, Kot Balwal, jails spread across the country. And perhaps, I don't know if this is the first state where people are slapped with PSA, youngsters slapped with PSA, and then been sent to jails outside the state. And most of them, a lot of them are sick, down through, they're poor and sick. Their parents can't even go and meet them because it costs almost 30-40,000 to reach Varanasi and come back. A lot of people who have cancer, who are suffering from cancer, they are languishing in jails in Varanasi, and it's very difficult for their parents to reach them. So uh, this is also one of the problems that the youth has. A lot of them are in jails, and we need to do something about it.
What do you think? What steps can the government actually take to rebuild trust in Kashmiri youth? Because a lot of things have happened that should have not happened and continue to happen. What do you think can the government actually do to, change this and to rebuild, foster trust?
The first thing that I would say is, as I told you, we have to bring back those boys who are languishing in jails in the rest of the country, uh, uh, for and getting them back, because a lot of them are there on the charges who've not had any hearing. So at least we can start with that. Then the employment is a very big issue. There has to be an employment drive. Then drug menace. The government has to plan out things as to how they're going to take care of the drug menace. So these are the kind of things that it could start. But basically, youngsters are emotionally defeated. They don't really know what exactly is the face of Indian democracy.
All right. So I'd like to also ask you, what is your vision for Kashmir in the coming decade? What do you think are the challenges that are coming up for Kashmir, and what do you think are the silver lining that can actually be achieved in the next 10 years?
Well, I don't know what can be possibly be achieved in the next 10 years, but I would say for myself and the party that I represent that we will try to uh, voice out the concerns of the people. Voice out, we'll make our voice the manifesto for strong center-state relationships, federalism, because it's important that federalism is strengthened in the country, because actually a lot of people ask this question, that in 2019 that there were two decisions that were taken by the Home Minister, the Central Dispensation. One is abrogation of Article 370 on 5 August 2019, and also in December they gave inner line permit to Manipur. So one consolidates or solidifies federalism, and another actually obliterates it. So that is what a Kashmiri asks. If the country believes in federalism and we go by asymmetric federalism, we recognize, our constitution recognizes asymmetric federalism, why is there, why are there two barometers? For example, you give a lot of concessions to the Northeast. You have 4 states in the country which require a visa, inner line permit to enter them. And over here, you had a very strong state, and you completely destroy it, reduce it to a status of a union territory. Well, of course, I'm going to be I'm going to be advocating for strong federalism, and we'll also be advocating for talking with the neighbors, because you can, as Vajpayee ji said, that you can change your friends, but you can't change your neighbors. So it's better to have peace in the subcontinent, and peace can only come when you're talking with all the stakeholders. And it's important at this juncture that you have an open mind, because and give something back to the people of Kashmir, because you have emotionally destroyed them.
All right. Thank you so much for this conversation, Mr. Mir. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you
for
so
being
much.
with us.
Pleasure to be with you.
If you like this episode, then please remember to like, subscribe, and share for more. Thank you.